Yeah, it's also the matter of armed forces remembrance. Our correspondent Kayla is there, was preceding the event which you kick on today. Well, Kayla, could you give us what is going on at the moment?
Hi, Chamberlain, and good morning. Happy Remembrance Day to you. It's a very important day, as we all know. The parade just kind of started right there. If you can see behind me, the soldiers have taken their formations. Now we are at the National Arcade. Security is incredibly tight in the nation's capital right now. You can't go anywhere, okay, especially around this area. But it's one of those days where you think about the past and what steps have been made towards making the future better, especially when it comes to conflict resolution in this country. Not too long ago, we saw the widows. The widows walked here in procession to go take their place. In the arcade for the ceremonies. And of course, you can see maybe from our shots, I don't know if we're going to move to that, the statue of that unknown soldier. The lane of wreath is going to be right there. We're going to be expecting Mr. President to lead that particular event today, so that will be happening shortly. But the parade has started. Arrival of guests is on right now, and then of course there are going to be so many salutes. And I don't think there are going to be any speeches. It's not one of those days where people are talking a lot. It's a day of remembrance and a day to think about those who have died to keep us safe. So we're talking about all kinds of conflict. We're talking First World War, Second World War, the Civil War. We're talking about all kinds of operations that have been on in the country for a very long time. These are some of the people who have laid their lives, to ensure that people are safe in this country. So a lot of things going to be happening here at the National Arcade. That is a very significant spot, by the way. The National Arcade is between the National Assembly. We also have the Presidential Villa not too far away from here. Eagle Square is directly opposite the National Arcade. The Federal Secretariat is right in front of us. Ministry of Foreign Affairs is here. So it's a very significant spot in the nation's capital. And we'll be expecting all of the activities to go on shortly.
Indeed, thank you, Kayla. Well, of course, in the course of general programming today, keep tabs with you on that one. And speaking about that small matter of the Civil War, we've got something coming up.
Oh yes, in the spirit of remembrance, we continue with our theme 50 years after Biafra, healing, reconciliation and reintegration. And this morning we have the singular pleasure and honor to host Chief Simon Okeke, who is a chartered estate surveyor and a valuer. He was former head of DMI of the 11th Division of Biafra Army. He clocked 84 years on the 7th of January this year. And he's a founder of Knight, Frank and Rutley Nigeria International firm of real estate consultants. Chief Okeke, welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I think it would be very interesting to get your reflections on where we currently are 50 years after the war, the fratricidal civil war, between Nigeria and the secessionist attempts at secession by Biafra. What exactly are your thoughts in terms of where we are as a people 50 years after?
Well, 50 years is not 50 days and 50 months. It's quite a long time. And one would have expected that we would be somewhere rather than where we are today. We are not there. We all know what happened, what the cause and effects of the Civil War, even though those born after the Civil War are not being taught history, which is most unfortunate. But those of us who saw it all through and are still here on earth know that the causes of the Civil War, what led to the Civil War, still remain with us today, which is a pity. And we would hope that all efforts, all hands should be put on deck to ensure that there's no repeat of what happened before. Because, I mean, the country belongs to all of us. When you give an impression that the country belongs to one part and the other part or the other parts are visitors to the country, it doesn't make for a healthy living at all. So you are a stranger. When you're a stranger to a country, then you ask yourself, what are you there for?
You still get that feeling 50 years after?
Which is unfortunate, yes. Many, many. Particularly those of us in the eastern part of Nigeria. And to a measure extent, in the south. Right. Some of us still feel that the country is not, we are a stranger to the country, which is not so. Shouldn't be so.
Mm. I'm wondering, I don't know if you have written your memoirs of what transpired during the war, whether you have documented it.
I have written, when I clocked 70 years, I wrote a book, which is titled Just As I Am. In it, I have a chapter that contains a bit of my experience during the Civil War. So I'll call your attention to that.
What were your expectations when the war ended? You were being welcomed back to Nigeria. There was the 3 hours of General Gowon there, reconciliation, rehabilitation and reconstruction. There was a mantra, no victor, no vanquished. Did you find the country welcoming after the Civil War?
That's a very good question. No victor, no vanquished. Reconciliation, reconstruction, and rehabilitation. Has there been a rehabilitation since after the war? Has there been reconstruction? In the East, especially the war theater, has there been a reconstruction? And has there been any reconciliation? No, none of the 3 R's has been acted upon. It's mere expression of intention, which so far had not been acted upon. No victor, no vanquished. I mean, with what is happening in the country today, can you tell me that people across the Niger do not feel that they were vanquished? I mean, from all intentions and all actions, everything speaks loudly that there's a measure of victor and vanquish, across the Niger. Do unto others as you wish them to do unto them, as the saying goes. So, who is deceiving who?
You don't think it's a feeling that is pervasive all over the country? So, for instance, if you talk about, say, a lack of infrastructure in the Southeast, there'll be questions as to which part of the country really has the kind of infrastructure that, Nigeria as a country with all of the monies that we have made really has. Which region of the country can point to that? If you talk about indices of poverty, for instance, which part of the country can really say that with all the wealth that the country has, we have felt the impact of the wealth of the country in our side of the country? You don't think that this is more a generic thing rather than something that, the Southeast alone has felt?
Let me tell you, whatever development you've seen across the East is more or less self-effort, not by the government that is supposed to do it. go to the zone where the oil comes from. If you drive within within those areas, you feel
in the south, right?
In the south. You feel one. I mean, you can't believe that this is where the oil comes from that feeds the whole country, from which development of the country is taking place. I mean, not even water to drink, safe water to drink, not to think of the roads. Then, over across the east, if you ever drive from River Niger down to Porakot, to Calabar, going to Enugu and then Benue, I mean, you feel really very sorry for the country and very sorry for the states.
No, that's the point I'm making, sir.
So the point is, there has to be a modicum of development, but there's none. You see, the road from Onitsha to Enugu has been there for, the contract has been awarded for well over 15 years, but nothing done up to today. You still take you 2 to 3 hours to drive from Onitsha to Enugu, a journey that wouldn't take you more than 40 minutes. Same thing applies to a measure to a good extent from Onitsha to Owerri and to Porakot. I mean, so to that extent, one could see. It's clear that nothing is being done. Look at it. We've been talking about the second Niger Bridge, for instance. This has been so politicized. Right from the time of 1999 to 2007, Obasanjo's regime, to the current period, we are still talking about second Niger Bridge.
Well, there's what's going on it right now.
After how many years? As if, and even when it is going on, it looks as if it's a privilege for us. The bridge, when constructed, is it to be used only by the Southeasterners? It's to be used by Nigerians. But why politicize it? It took so long. And again, right from the time of Chief President Obasanjo, to build it, it was anchored on borrowed money, not budgeted money. In other words, you have to borrow money and then pay for the loan. Only God knows when that will be the period of payment of the loan. Whereas much heavier investments on roads and bridges and railways have been done in other parts of the country, but based purely on budget. Now, look at, we're talking about railway development.
A lot of the rail lines have been developed mostly with loans given from China.
Okay, yes, loan from China. But that being done now, I may tell you that only very on a peripheral basis does one ever hear of railway going through southeast, the zone of the war. It's been excluded. It is very clear. So it therefore gives you the impression that this is part of the country that is being sidelined in all respects. It should not be so.
Well, when we come back from this break, our guest is also the chairman of the Police Service Commission sometime during the tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo in the Fourth Republic. And we'll come back and ask how, institutions like the police have been able to help with matters of reintegration. When we come back from this break, please stay with us. represented at this occasion by former head of DMI of the 11th Division of the Biafra Army when Nigeria fought the Civil War. Yeah, so you headed the Nigeria Police Service Commission during the tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo, and some people would say that one of the areas where we could be correcting these issues of ethnicity and perhaps some ethnic groups feeling more superior to another will be through institutions like the police, which you headed. What challenges did you see there, and what were the attempts you made to try to correct them?
Thank you very much for that question. As you rightly said, at the time I came on board, there was so much disillusionment, so much, so much of wait until it's your turn. And it is we who are on top now. And promotions were based not on merit, but on who you know, which is very demoralizing in police. There was so much lack of high morale. It was so low in the police when I came on board. And I must thank the former President Obasanjo for listening to superior argument in that matter. He very much listened to the cry that was brought to him of the distancing of people from real policing, true policing. When I came on board, the first thing I did was to set up committees to draw up rules, regulations, guidelines for promotions, for instance. And this committee, membership of the committee drawn from the not hard crackers in the police.
So you were able to at least entrench some form of merit within the Nigerian
Very
police
much
force
indeed.
at that time.
For instance. Okay,
I'm
yes,
sorry, we were almost out of time. In fact, we're totally out of time.
Yes.
I just want to ask you this.
Yes.
Now, I believe you identify as Nigerian. Is that right?
Yes.
Are you optimistic about the future of the country? If you can do it in a sentence or two.
If right things are done, yes. I mean, I believe so. I believe there is hope for Nigeria if right things are done to make people believe and have faith and confidence in the country and not, alienated within the country they belong to. I believe so.
Well, the ball is back in the court, I think, of all of us and, of course, the government of the day. But we have to thank you this morning for sharing your time with us. Chief Simon Okeke is a chartered estate surveyor and valuer. He was the former head of DMI of the 11th Division of the Biafra Army. He is 84 years. He clocked that on 7th of January this year. He was also the chairman of the Police Service Commission during the tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Well, that's where we'll leave it for Sunrise Daily this morning. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Oh, yes, indeed. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Kayode Okeke. And I'm Ayo Makine. Have a wonderful day.